Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Swallowed Star based on novel. So let's start. Unable to become a Universe Supreme Master, yet having to create a secret technique that was on the level of a Universe Supreme Master. This was like a gigantic barrier that nature had set before their paths, hindering Luo Feng, Dear Bugmaster, Yuzon Master, Blue Blood Knight, and the various other great beings. Within Universe Ocean, there could be simply no solution at all. Luo Feng's teacher, Primal Chaos City Leader, would not be able to achieve it either, but now, Duandong River was obviously forcing them to succeed. Time flew by. Within the blink of an eye, another 3 decades passed. The virtual universe. Huge Axe Creator. Luo Feng sat cross-legged with a great quantity of 3-dimensional virtual shadows from the Rhinoceros Emperor game surrounding him. His brows were furrowed as he looked at the primitive giant. I have been thinking very hard, but I still cannot find a stronger blade technique. Would Huge Axe Creator like to give me some pointers on how I should advance? Huge Axe Creator, also seated cross-legged, replied, within that ancient civilization, the inheritance from the pulse of Duandong River is extremely powerful, so they set very stringent requirements for their heirs. For him to have such a demand, naturally there would be such a possibility. Luo Feng nodded. He was aware of that possibility, but where could he find it? He had been studying and pondering diligently but had made no progress at all. This feeling was antagonizing. Besides, according to the Golden Space Path, Golden Universe was theoretically at its perfect limit. How else could he achieve a breakthrough? If he himself could not find any traces of flaws, then there was no way he could further perfect it. The inheritance of the blade has bestowed you with 360 blade manuals and 3 mountains of blades, Huge Axe Creator prompted in a hushed tone. It must have its purpose for doing so. I am also aware that to achieve a breakthrough, I will need to take reference from the 360 blade manuals and the mountains of blades, said Luo Feng. But how can I do so when I cannot seem to find traces of any possible ways? Luo Feng felt helpless. After creating Golden Universe, it might have seemed as though 3 decades had passed, but in truth, 30 eras had gone by. It had been 30 eras, yet he had not made any progress. Without any sign of a breakthrough, how could he not feel discouraged? Huge Axe nodded. I have asked Teacher Origin before. Teacher Origin? Luo Feng's eyes lit up. Yes. Huge Axe nodded, then slowly said, Teacher Origin said, if you want a breakthrough, the source lies within the 3 mountains of blade. Luo Feng gave a slight frown as he muttered to himself in silence. The source was within the 3 mountains of blades. Huge Axe Creator continued to say, the 3 mountains of blades contain the ultimate mysterious existence that can possibly help you create a secret technique of the level of a Universe Supreme Master, even though your achievement in the studies of diagrams of secret engravings is limited to the level of a Universe Master. This is what we mean by executing and creating, yet not necessarily truly understanding. Executing and creating, yet not necessarily truly understanding? Luo Feng nodded slightly. What Teacher Origin said makes sense, Luo Feng whispered. Previously, I was able to create golden light. Today I will be able to create something even stronger. Actually, judging from the experiences of countless great beings from the Universe Ocean, the possibility of creating a secret technique at the level of a Universe Supreme Master was 0. Yet the 3 icebergs gave this situation a trace of hope. Difficult. Simply too difficult. It was not just Luo Feng who was stuck at this stage. There were a few other great beings from East Emperor Holy Land who were stuck at the same stage, and even Blue Blood Knight, who had spent 20 years to create a perfect secret technique at the level of a Universe Master, was stuck at the same stage. Ancestor, there is no hope at all. Blue Blood Knight sat on the leaf of a huge tree, filled with distress and anxiety. Painstakingly, I searched, yet I could not find any inspiration at all. Ancestor. Yangzon Master also wore an anxious expression. East Emperor Holy Land has existed for an endlessly long time, and there wasn't a single time when a Universe Master could create a secret technique at the level of a Universe Supreme Master. How am I going to achieve a breakthrough? Do please give me some guidance, Ancestor. The other candidates simply sat cross-legged on the leaves of that huge tree and listened. This was within a certain space belonging to East Emperor Holy Land, where time was accelerated by 10,000 times. The entire plain was mainly occupied by an ancient tree that had countless leaves. At that moment, the great beings, including East Emperor Ancestor himself, sat cross-legged on the tree leaves. Those are engravings of laws that you all have yet to come across before. East Emperor Ancestor's entire being radiated a faint green light, and he was seated far away, where he slowly said, "Engravings of laws are where all the mysteries and secrets of laws can be found. With these engravings of laws as guidance, you will find that the door to progress will be opened for you." The group of great beings looked at one another. The door to progress would be opened. Comprehend carefully, East Emperor Ancestor said without a second thought. Do not allow yourself to slacken. When someone among you has finally comprehended the secret technique of a universe supreme master, then it is time for the other candidates to all be annihilated. Understood, a few dozen candidates answered deferentially. Purple Moon Holy Land. Purple Moon Ancestor smiled and looked down at the various candidates. Since Duandong River gave you all mountains of icebergs, then by all means, the secret must lie within those engravings of the laws. Comprehend carefully, and you will gain something. Abandon all kinds of thoughts you had previously. Meticulously study and comprehend those engravings of laws from various perspectives. Dear Bugmaster was among the first few to answer. Understood. Great beings from other groups of powers of Universe Ocean were all at a loss for words when questioned by their own candidates. This was because even they had not seen those engravings of laws before, so they could only reply, since there is only a mountain of iceberg, then the path to take should naturally fall within the iceberg. We just have to comprehend carefully. The great beings who made it into the space of inheritance definitely gained much, especially the Universe Masters. Most of them originally only possessed the capability up to the 4th or 5th level, but under the guidance of the engravings of law, depending on the length of time spent, they were able to create, one by one, the most perfect combination of strongest secret technique at the level of a Universe Master. If they could make it out alive, all of them would naturally become top-tiered existences at the 5th level. What a pity that out of them all, only one was fated to survive. Years went by. Luo Feng had thoroughly studied all 360 blade manuals and memorized them by heart. His whole mind and body were immersed into careful comprehension of the 3 icebergs, the engravings of laws. Just a single engraving of law. Luo Feng's gaze chased after that meteor-like light, which was flying high and low, creating streams of light shaped into perfect arcs. It looked simple, yet it contained endless meaning. As he watched, that stream of light seemed to grow bigger and thicker, as though it was an incomparably large rainbow. The edges of the rainbow had countless blade shadows, which were either gentle like water, stable as a mountain, or fiery like flames. Every blade shadow had an extremely complex diagram of secret engravings, so complex that it far surpassed what Luo Feng had once seen before in the greatest, ultimate diagram of secret engravings found within the 9th deep abyss. This was something Luo Feng could not comprehend. Countless blade shadows perfectly conformed to one another to compose a gigantic rainbow. This rainbow resembled a simple stream of meteor-like light. Gold, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, light, lightning, space, gold space, water space, wooden space, even to water time, gold time. Uncountable secrets seemed to be completely fused, yet at times, they are only partially fused. Luo Feng was intoxicated by everything he saw. The engravings of laws were detached from any other individual law because it contained all the laws and all the mysteries. Luo Feng's left eye kept watch on that meteor-like light while his right eye was engaged in watching the 3 mountains of icebergs and countless meteor-like light rays that were intertwining with one another to form the magnificent and unpredictable blade technique that was so mystical. Left eye, right eye. One to the meteor-like light, the other to the 3 mountains of blades. Reflecting and mirroring one another. That was when a mystery arose. Luo Feng was well versed in the gold law, space law, and golden space law. As for the other laws, when he was studying the diagrams of secret engravings, he only managed to acquire scraps of information about them. Even though his comprehension was not high, there was still some understanding. which was why, when he was looking, Luo Feng could only distinctly identify the blade figure that was mainly based on golden space. While looking, all the blade techniques in the 360 blade manuals were still hovering in his mind, appearing one by one and mirroring one another. With these in his mind, Luo Feng could even naturally create one blade technique after another, all in search of the feeling of looking at the engravings of laws. He could work hard on creating a blade technique with that sort of unique quality. It was just that the blade technique might be too weak or might already be incomplete from the very beginning. But Luo Feng was not bothered by those thoughts. He still continued creating. Time passed. Luo Feng was unaware of how much time had passed. He was completely immersed in the creating process. Unknowingly, he had finished the analysis of space law. He had even managed to acquire the skill of using all the secret techniques of wood law, water law, fire law, and earth law. Although he had not meant to comprehend these four fundamental laws, due to his overly profound comprehension, the way of utilizing the secret techniques of the four laws was naturally comprehended over time. If he'd had the intention to comprehend these four major laws, he would probably have achieved complete comprehension within 2 to 3 days. Gold. Space. Space, yet to become gold, wood, water, fire, earth. Annihilate. Gold. He did not know how long he spent on comprehending. Space was originally divided into 5 different types, namely, gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. During his long period of comprehending, Luo Feng had familiarized himself with these 5 spaces, and when both eyes were looking at the icebergs, one would focus on the intrinsic qualities while the other would focus on the external phase in search of the ultimate secrets. Along the way, he had discerned a new route. This is the blade I am looking for. Luo Feng grasped absolute guest blade and silently rose to stand above the chaotic airflow. He wielded his blade. A brilliant ray that sliced across the vast sky instantly. There was an upsurge of light rays that converged into a dark, gigantic sphere. Countless blade rays were suppressed within this black sphere. A single blade ray could actually transform into this black, gigantic sphere within an instant to reach a height of 10 billion kilometers. The black sphere suddenly split apart from the middle. A dazzling golden light appeared, but it vanished in a flash. A clearly visible mark could be seen within the entire space of inheritance. There it remained. I see it. A new life. Luo Feng shut his eyes as tears flowed. He was genuinely touched from the bottom of his heart. This single move had allowed him to advance to an entirely new level. Candidate has created the third form of blade technique, the cold, mechanical voice said in Luo Feng's ears. An heir has emerged. The other candidates. Annihilate. During that long period, all the candidates had seemed to have lost their sanity as they immersed themselves within the icebergs. Suddenly, an intangible force fell from the star high above and landed directly upon every single one of the candidates. No. Blue Blood's eyes widened as his face registered fear. No, it should have been me. I should be the one succeeding. Thereafter, he lay there, unmoving. His godly body looked the same, but his soul was annihilated. Dear Bug Master, who was in the midst of comprehending, registered a change in expression. Then he, too, remained where he was, unmoving. One by one, the great beings froze instantly, as if they had become blocks of ice. They had all been annihilated, leaving behind their godly bodies. At the same time, the divided bodies of these great beings in the other miniature universes, and even those in the primal universe, were all annihilated. The moment an heir was born, the others were annihilated. It was an ironic form of celebration. Purple Moon Ancestor frowned as the candidates fell one after another, including Dear Bugmaster, whom he had the best hope for. He failed. Purple Moon Ancestor frowned. Then who got it? That human from the original universe? Eastern Emperor? Or other powers? Purple Moon Ancestor was anxious, but he couldn't tell which one got the inheritance. He could only tell that the human from the original universe had the best chance. Eastern Emperor and I need the inheritance from Duandong River, Purple Moon Ancestor thought. It's either that human Milky Way or blue blood from Eastern Emperor Holy Land. They have the best hope. Eastern Emperor must know which one got the inheritance. Purple Moon Ancestor nodded mildly. I'll see how Eastern Emperor Holy Land behaves to see whether Luofeng's still alive or not. In a dimension space of Eastern Emperor Holy Land, the candidates who were originally sitting on the leaves of a towering ancient tree all fell, and some of the bodies dropped from the tree, diving. Humph! Eastern Emperor snorted. He saw the body of Blue Blood Knight not far from him, and he said, Human Milky Way Horde Leader, Luofeng? All of the candidates dying at the same time shocked the entire universe ocean. The inheritance from Duandong River was craved by the almost 100 powers in universe ocean, as it was a great way for them to transcend incarnation. Who got it? The human or Eastern Emperor Holy Land? Which power got the inheritance? All the major powers in universe ocean were anxious and confused. However, other than Eastern Emperor Holy Land, nobody knew who got the inheritance. Eastern Emperor Holy Land knew because they saw Blue Blood Knight, which meant it was almost certain that it was that human, Milky Way Horde Leader. I've made the breakthrough and become the new inheritor of Duandong River. Luofeng sent an email to Huge Axe Creator and Primal Chaos City Leader, and he disregarded the shock within the human race. Instead, he went to see Duandong River. The stone pillars had stereoscopic phantoms on them, and a man in a white cape was stood among them. When Luofeng wrote the email to tell Huge Axe Creator and Primal Chaos City Leader, the white-caped man smiled as he knew what the email was about. The silent war in Universe Ocean determined the fate of races, and we humans won. Teacher Origin smiled. He knew. He wasn't sure whether he could be free of suppression before the destruction of the original universe during this universe era, but the human race was destined to have a bright future, and it was likely that the third Holy Land would be that of the human race. At the same time, the email was sent to Huge Axe Creator and Primal Chaos City Leader. Space of Inheritance. Other candidates, die. The cold, robotic voice was still echoing beside Luofeng's ears. He turned his head and saw a figure flying in. It was the elegant Duandong River. At the moment, Duandong River was wearing white armor with golden stars on it, beautiful boots, and a hat. Master Duandong River. Luofeng gave a salutation. Don't call me master. Duandong River smiled. You can call me teacher. I'm Duandong River of the last generation, and you're the latest generation. I'm your teacher and your guide as well. Duandong River looked at the 3 icebergs in the distance. He waved his hands, and the 3 icebergs turned into nothing. Huh! Luofeng turned around. He lamented the loss of the 3 icebergs, for he considered them precious. Haha. 820 basic inheritances, you can study them whenever you want. Duandong River smiled. These are all just easy tricks for you to relax with. Duandong River values the core inheritance. Core inheritance. Luofeng's interest was piqued. Follow me. Duandong River flew out, seeing a space exit outside. Luofeng followed. He flew out and saw 820 gleaming entrances floating in the sky. Hide. Duandong River glanced around, and the entrances all disappeared. This interested Luofeng. Duandong River smiled. This is where every generation of Duandong River receives the inheritance. It's a very precious valuable. Much more precious than those so-called supreme true treasures, and it's more special even than some miniature universes. It has lots of individual dimensional spaces, and they form 820 portals connected to the 820 basic inheritances. Luofeng nodded. He only needed to view this space of inheritance as a special miniature universe. Go. Duandong River took Luofeng, and with his absolute control over the space of inheritance, he moved Luofeng to the deeper area of the space of inheritance. Luofeng saw the change in scenery. He was standing at the top of the mountain. He looked down, and all he could see was mist flowing around the mountain. He wasn't able to see the land at all. Where is this? Luofeng was shocked. This is the apex of the main area of the space of inheritance, said Duandong River. Look there. He followed Duandong River. Luofeng saw a human sculpture. He had long hair and deep eyes and was wearing battle armor. It looked like an ordinary human sculpture, but Luofeng could feel the power contained in it after looking at it for only a few seconds. It was an aloof and special power that was far beyond Luo Feng's understanding. Apparently, the power contained in that sculpture was far beyond Luo Feng's level. He couldn't even identify it at first. This is the third ancestral teacher. Duandong River's eyes were filled with awe. His name is Duandong River Juyi Saint King. Luo Feng was dazed. Duandong River Juyi Saint King? What a weird name. I am the 192nd inheritor, said Duandong River. My name is Duandong River Zhenju Wu. Luo Feng was even more confused. He had thought the full name of this Duandong River was Duandong River Wu. Your future name will be Duandong River Luo Feng. Duandong River looked at Luo Feng. Each generation of Duandong River has the same first name but different last names. Before I became the 192nd Duandong River, my name was Zhenju. Luo Feng understood now. The real name of the third ancestral teacher must have been Ju Yi. The third ancestral teacher, Duandong River, gazed at the sculpture in awe. He's the greatest being of Duandong River. The first ancestral teacher was powerful as well, but he was only a supreme being in my civilization. So was the second ancestral teacher. However, the third ancestral teacher was the truly amazing one. He spread the fame of Duandong River, and he stands among the pinnacle beings. Don't use terms like Universe Supreme Masters. It's a joke in my homeland. Duandong River shook his head. The so-called Universe Supreme Masters are called true gods in my hometown. Those weaker than true gods, undying fighters, Universe Knights, and Universe Masters, those are the same. True God is a threshold for supreme beings in my homeland. Although it's considered a great being, it's far away from being at the pinnacle. Even I have never reached that level. Luo Feng listened carefully. He had already deduced that Universe Supreme Masters were called true gods in the ancient civilization. It was little wonder that when the 7 true masters had fought Huge Axe Creator, the strange beast kept yelling, "True God," and "Eternal True God." The third ancestral teacher actually stood among the top beings, exclaimed Duandong River. He was also awed by all the great beings, so he was qualified to have the character for saint behind his name. And when he'd reached his full power, he gained the character for king. He was king of the saints. The real top being. I was also awed by countless great beings, but I was far away from being called saint. I could only earn the character Wu. Wu. He had earned that character. He seemed to have gotten the character from someone else. As for saints and kings, those needed to be recognized by countless great beings. The third ancestral teacher stood at the top, and he perfected the inheritance of Duandong River. Though none of the latter inheritors could reach the level of the third-generation ancestral teacher, Duandong River has never stopped. There were 9 who could be called saints. Duandong River is the most powerful inheritance even in my entire civilization. Luo Feng was shocked. He felt so lucky. If an inheritance could have a pinnacle being, it could surely be considered one of the most powerful inheritances. Come and kneel in front of your third-generation ancestral teacher, said Duandong River. You're the 193rd inheritor. Luo Feng nodded and walked to the futon made for groveling. He kneeled down and kowtowed. His head hit the rock. Immediately, countless streaks of black light came out of the photon where Luo Feng was kneeling and flooded Luo Feng's body. At the same time, the sculpture of the third ancestral teacher emitted light and shone upon Luo Feng's body. Inherit. Duandong River watched in silence. He looked relieved. It was a simple groveling, yet it was the most important step, inherit. Even with Luo Feng's willpower, he couldn't help grunting. A trace of black light and a trace of white light were inserted between his eyebrows. A strange inheritance mark was formed. Duandong River couldn't help shaking his body. He thought, Duandong River Luo Feng. From now on, you are Duandong River. Luo Feng grabbed onto the rocks with both hands. His entire body was trembling. Involuntarily, he looked up. As though he was being forcibly branded with an imprint right in the middle of his brows, a black and white intersecting mark appeared, and a short while later, it was completely hidden and vanished from sight. It could no longer be observed. Luo Feng could not control himself. His body continued to tremble. He opened his eyes and looked toward Duandong River, who stood beside him. This is too agonizing. This is the imprint that generations of Duandong River descendants had, Duandong River said. It is created by our third-generation ancestor, and every generation will inherit it. Once inherited, it will be easy to conform to the entire space of inheritance. Being branded with the imprint is a must, as this is the only way to get the space of inheritance to recognize one as its master, and only those who have gained control over this space can receive the true inheritance of the pulse of my Duandong River. Luo Feng nodded. The more unique a true treasure was, the more troublesome it was in getting it to recognize its master. Such situations were similar to getting Star Tower and the White Wings to recognize Luo Feng as their master, and this space of inheritance was a treasure that the pulse of Duandong River used to hand over its inheritance. It was more precious than a miniature universe and much more precious than any supreme true treasure. Thus, getting it to recognize its master, how complicated a process would that be? Only those branded with the imprint could attempt to get it to recognize them as its master. I might have been annihilated, but I left behind my virtual consciousness. Duandong River looked toward Luo Feng. With my actual thoughts, memories, and character as a template, I have created this consciousness. In this way, I could slowly wait for the next heir to come forth and receive the inheritance. I am able to leave behind this virtual consciousness. This is also a means achievable within this space of inheritance. He laughed. The space of inheritance has a wealth of functions. It is a treasure that 3 generations of ancestors specially created for our inheritance. Later on, you will find out more about every one of these functions. As my virtual consciousness is still in control over this space of inheritance, you are unable to get it to recognize you as its master for the time being. It is a must for me to give up control voluntarily to make it possible for you to get it to recognize its master. Before it recognizes you, you must do one thing. Duandong River looked at Luo Feng. Luo Feng said with due respect, "Teacher, please guide me." "Take an oath," Duandong River said sternly. "Repeat after me." Luo Feng nodded and listened intently. Duandong River said slowly in a solemn tone, "I hereby take this oath, in the name of a newly appointed Duandong River, with the imprint of the inheritance as witness. I, Duandong River Luo Feng, will not allow the core inheritance of the pulse of Duandong River to fall in the hands of outsiders. If I should break my oath, then my soul shall be annihilated." "Must I?" Luo Feng looked at Duandong River. "You must." Duandong River nodded. "Otherwise, you shall be annihilated, and I shall have to choose another heir." Luo Feng nodded and repeated as instructed. "I hereby take this oath, in the name of a newly appointed Duandong River, with the imprint of the inheritance as witness. I, Duandong River Luo Feng, will not allow the core inheritance of the pulse of Duandong River to fall in the hands of outsiders. If I should break my oath, then my soul shall be annihilated." His voice echoed, in his ears and in his mind. The imprint between his brows lit up, and his words were transmitted in short bouts into the depths of his soul. "If I should break my oath, then my soul shall be annihilated. Then my soul shall be annihilated. Then my soul shall be annihilated." These words reverberated persistently within his soul. Luo Feng frowned, as he had doubts. Then he glanced at Duandong River standing beside him. Duandong River nodded knowingly. "This imprint of the inheritance will stay with you for your lifetime. I know you are a universe knight. You are capable of resurrection. Yet, even upon rebirth, you will still carry on this imprint for eternity. If you break your vow, this imprint of the inheritance will annihilate your soul. Even if you were to be resurrected, you would face annihilation over again. The vicious cycle of resurrection and annihilation would replay over and over again." Luo Feng shuddered. "Of course, so long as you do not let the core inheritance fall into the hands of outsiders, nothing will go wrong." Duandong River nodded. "All right, before you get this space of inheritance to recognize you as its master, I shall tell you about some of the most important information and treasures. Follow me." Duandong River pointed far into the void space ahead, and a space door appeared. Duandong River and Luo Feng flew right through that space door, one after the other. All over, The place was filled with endless water. And right in the middle, there was a miniature island. On the island was an ordinary wooden house, and before the wooden house was a curved pond. Duandong River landed beside the pond. This space is known to be one of the most important out of the various spaces found in the space of inheritance. Duandong River pointed to a spot above the pond. You see that? The 3 black stones suspended above the water's surface. Luo Feng looked over. The pond was not big, yet the 3, smooth, crystal-like black stones were suspended above it, floating persistently. This is called the memory stone, also known as the inheritance stone, Duandong River said. It can store a large quantity of memories. Even if a super great being has a large amount of memory to be stored, saving every bit of information will still be very easy. He added solemnly, these 3 stones are said to be the root of the pulse of my Duandong River. Root. Luo Feng felt a jolt. Take a look inside the pond, Duandong River said. Then, with a wave of his hand, all the water in the pond flew up in an instant, revealing numerous black stones at the bottom of the pond. At first glance, Luo Feng thought there could be as many as hundreds of thousands of stones. Now, take a look at the vast ocean. Duandong River waved his hand again. An immeasurable amount of water from the vast ocean surrounding the miniature island started to float with a rumble. It was as though there had been a reversal between heaven and earth, where all the ocean water floated up to the sky, leaving the earth below empty, thus revealing numerous ocean trenches and undersea valleys. With a single glance, given Luo Feng's range of view, he caught occasional glimpses of black stones. All those are memory stones, Duandong River told him. These 3 are the roots. They make up the essence of the core inheritance. It is the noblest contribution that 3 generations of ancestors had left for the pulse of my Duandong River. In that pond, there is a total of 12,002 memory stones, and they all belong to the core inheritance. Duandong River laughed. However, these stones represent different kinds of memories related to fields of study, close combat, far-range attacks, refining treasures, automatons, and many more. They also contain techniques and methods of cultivation. Any given stone would be enough to drive everyone from Universe Ocean into a frenzy. Within that vast ocean, as many as hundreds of millions of memory stones were scattered about randomly. Duandong River laughed again. Those were left behind by the great beings from the pulse of my Duandong River. As they roamed and wandered, they continuously gathered all kinds of information covering a comprehensive range of content, which they considered all-encompassing. As for information on the basic skills of my home civilization, I should think at least 90% are recorded. Of course, the records are very elementary. It is like receiving the basic inheritance. The idea is the same. Luo Feng was tingling with excitement. A library. This was just like a super library or, rather, templates left behind by that ancient civilization. By relying on the millions of memory stones in that vast ocean, it was possible to replicate the mid to low power range of that ancient civilization. After all, the information was very basic. These 12,002 memory stones, Duandong River said, pointing to the bottom of the pond, are the pride of generations of heirs. These were their hearts and souls. Of course, there were some gathered that also contain important information on cultivation, and these are priceless. Every memory stone is more than enough to set off a war. These 3 are even more likely to set off a war among the superpowers in my home. Remember, all the information within these 3 and the 12,002 stones must not fall into the hands of outsiders. Understood, Luo Feng replied. Try using your godly power to enwrap these 3 memory stones, Duandong River said. You have the inheritance imprint. The 3 memory stones will acknowledge you and transfer all the inheritance they contain over to you. Luo Feng held his breath. The essence of the core inheritance. He stood at the apex of knowledge for which 3 generations of ancestors were most proud. 3 invisible godly powers extended out to speedily envelop the 3 black stones, and the moment they came into contact, the 3 black stones started to radiate a faint glow. On the surface, ancient and complex engravings started to appear. Then an influx of information surged and charged its way into Luo Feng's mind. It was a tremendous amount of information. being transmitted to him in such an overwhelming amount. Even with Luo Feng's speed of inheriting, the complete transmission took him 1 full day. Duandong River stood aside and watched with a smile as Luo Feng opened a pair of eyes filled with shock and disbelief. It was only 3 sets of lost knowledge. The core of the entire pulse of Duandong River, its true essence, was none other than these 3 sets of lost knowledge. They were named Duan, Dong, and River. Duan was the abbreviation for Duan Mie, which meant annihilation. It was a unique set of lost knowledge that could bring about an accelerated upsurge of all the power of a godly body or just a normal flesh and blood body within a short period of time. It could also cause the ability of a body to improve by hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of times in terms of strength. This set of lost knowledge, if simply put across, was somewhat similar to self-destruction, because self-destruction was the process of gathering all the energy within a body to bring about an outburst of power. Normally, during self-destruction, 2 things would happen. 1. The power of an attack would be scattered in all directions. 2. Once self-destruction was activated, the user would also be annihilated. However, Duan Mie, the core inheritance created by 3 generations of ancestors, was entirely different. It allowed the great being to control the rate at which it was being burned. For instance, within 3 seconds, the entire godly body could be completely burned. The power was controllable. It could be brought to an outburst that was stronger than normal by innumerable times, or could be controlled to last only for 1 fleeting second during a battle, or even controlled by bringing it to a complete halt instantly. Furthermore, during battles, the accuracy of the power could be controlled when attacking components. Duan allowed a great being to skip stages when using it to annihilate enemies. That was why this set of lost knowledge was formidable. Dong was the abbreviated name for Dong Hua, which meant East Brilliance and was a set of lost knowledge on escaping. Once executed, a great being could transform into a stream of brilliance. The speed was unbelievably fast, so fast as to easily traverse layers of space. This was the most formidable escape technique of the pulse of Duandong River. River was short for Undying River, which was a set of lost knowledge that taught the skill of becoming undying. Just like any flesh and blood life form, when they become undying fighters, universe knights, or universe masters, their godly bodies would be converted into a more intangible form of energy. And once they achieved their breakthrough to become universe supreme masters, they would, on the contrary, be reverted back to their origin. When various identities combined as one, the more intangible godly body would take a more concrete form composed of flesh and blood. This would be truly a flesh and blood life form. Although part of a flesh and blood body could also be burned up and converted to energy like a godly body, ultimately, it was still a flesh and blood life form. Normally, annihilating a universe master or universe supreme master through soul attacks would deprive opponents any chances for resurrections, yet when relying on Undying River, the moment this knowledge had been cultivated to a certain degree, any great being would be able to isolate part of its divided body from its main body. Also, another instance of utilizing this knowledge was hiding a mere drop of blood. Even if the divided body of a great being was hit by a soul attack and all of it was annihilated, after undergoing unique refining, this drop of blood of the annihilated body could remain unscathed. Thereafter, it could spend some time to speedily absorb energy and take up its original form again. That would make an undying fighter. Duan Mie allowed its user to achieve an outburst of extreme power when faced with opponents in battle. Dong Hua, used for escaping, was incomparably formidable. Even if there was no way to escape, one could always rely on Undying River to effect a resurrection. The 3 sets of lost knowledge. Relying on these 3 sets of lost knowledge, every generation of Duandong River would only have 1 set of the 3 lost knowledges, yet every generation would see the emergence of one terrifying figure. Indeed, they are worthy to be called the lost knowledges of 3 generations of ancestors. Indeed, they are worthy to be called the core of the entire pulse of Duandong River. These are simply, certainly, extremely powerful. Luo Feng was tongue-tied. It was no wonder this was the most top-notch inheritance of that ancient civilization, and only a favored elite could inherit it. It was more than enough to drive any great being mad with jealousy. No wonder East Emperor Holy Land and Purple Moon Holy Land coveted it. The two ancestors must have long ago heard of certain information regarding the inheritance of the pulse of Duandong River. This video will end here.